The Avenger is Jeep's first mainstream compact SUV model, a small, fashionable contender that, unlike most of its competitors, is a bit more SUV than crossover. It sells mainly as an EV, but is also offered in conventional petrol and 48-volt hybrid forms. Virtually all the Stellantis Group engineering here we've seen before, but it's been delivered with a distinctly Jeep vibe.
If you're looking at an Avenger in EV form, forward motion comes from a single 154 brake horsepower electric motor with 260 newton meters of torque, mounted on the front axle and powered by a 54 kilowatt hour battery. When fully charged, this offers a range of 249 miles. Expect slightly less than that for the forthcoming four-wheel drive PHEV 4xe version, which adds a further motor on the rear axle. If you want to stick with combustion power, Jeep will sell you an Avenger with two flavours of 1.2 litre, 3-cylinder PureTech petrol engines. One is conventional with 99 brake horsepower and manual transmission. The other, for the hybrid model, uses the same engine paired with a 28 brake horsepower electric motor, integrated into a bespoke 6-speed dual-clutch automatic gearbox. Despite the fact that the Avenger is primarily a front-driven design, Jeep is positioning it as the off-road champion of the EV market's growing SUV B segment. There's a higher ride height, minimum 200mm, than is normal in the class, and thanks to short overhangs, that means better approach and departure angles. It should be more capable off-piste than a comparable Renegade 4xe plug-in hybrid. There are 20-degree breakover and approach angles and a 32-degree departure angle, all of which might sound irrelevant for an urban SUV, but which Jeep says will make it better suited for dealing with speed humps, high curbs and steep multi-storey car park ramps. Yeah, right. An Avenger, though, might give you more confidence than its rivals in a snowy snap. This is the first front-driven Jeep fitted with standard hill descent control and select terrain driving modes. There are 6 settings: normal, eco, sport, snow and mud and sand. The battery can recharge from 20 to 80% in 24 minutes via a 100 kilowatt cable when hooked up to a suitably rapid charger. Just 3 minutes on such a fast charger would add 80 miles of range, and 24 minutes could get the battery from 20 to 80%. For some time now, there's been very little indeed that's American about mainstream Jeep models, and the Avenger follows that trend. It's the first Jeep to be designed outside the US and won't even be sold there, built in Poland and aimed almost entirely at the European market. Despite that, classic brand design cues are everywhere to convince you otherwise. The pumped-up trapezoidal wheel arches and the shoulder line reference the Willys Jeep of 1941. The floating C-pillar is from the Compass and Grand Cherokee, and of course there's the company's usual classic 7-slot front grille, though it's actually closed off, cooling air directed instead beneath the front bumper. Well, there's certainly a degree of brand familiarity here. This lean dashboard, supposedly inspired by the Wrangler, with an upper part made up of a single horizontal function beam, which includes all the air vents, ambient lighting and the central 10.25-inch Uconnect infotainment touchscreen that all Avengers share. Below this central features passenger and middle part is a very useful full-width shelf, highlighting the interior's practically intended orientation. The other screen your attention will be directed to is the one you view through the familiar-looking 3-spoke wheel, a display which will, as here, also be 10.25 inches in size, unless you're restricted to base spec, which gets it in 7-inch form. Even for very tall folk, it shouldn't be difficult to find a comfortable driving position, thanks to plenty of adjustment from the wheel and the 6-way adjustable driver's seat. There's not much to justify the premium prices Jeep wants to charge, unless you splash out on the optional leather upholstery that features here. Certainly there are rather too many hard plastics. This optional yellow finishing for the function beam brightens things up though, And we mentioned the emphasis on storage space. Well, there's 34 litres of it, over double the segment average. Enough, Jeep assures us, rather pointlessly, for the carriage of up to 580 ping pong balls. Apart from the lower fascia shelf we mentioned, your main receptacle for odds and ends will be this covered central bin, which angles up towards the centre stack, and with 15 litres of internal space could swallow a small bag or a large-ish bottle of water. Right, time to take a look in the back. Legroom's supposed to benefit from the careful hip positioning, supposedly also aided by the way that the 17-module battery's been secreted beneath the floor. But there's really not much room to stretch out at all, especially when you're seated behind a tall front seat passenger. Let's finish, as usual, with a look out back. Now, you get this powered tailgate above base trim, which rises to reveal a 355-litre boot that's modest by class standards, 120 litres less than a Kia Niro EV, for instance. Still, you access the space via a low 720mm loading height, and there's a 1 metre rear hatch width. When the seatback 60/40 splits down, it doesn't lay quite flat either, though it does release 1,053 litres of space. A rather unremarkable figure that Jeep attempted to embellish by telling us that it would be sufficient to take up to 2,443 rubber ducks. For a brand that wants to lead the all-electric SUV market, Jeep has had a late start, but we can now expect full battery models thick and fast on the mark for the rest of this decade, few of which will be more significant than this Avenger. It competes in a segment now accounting for 20% of all European sales, and the company hopes it will be key to correcting its lacklustre sales performance in markets such as ours. We can't help respecting the company for making at least some attempt to preserve traditional rough road brand virtues here, and in doing so, they've given the car a unique selling point in its segment, even if it's not a particularly significant one. You could still argue, of course, that for all kinds of reasons, this isn't a real Jeep, but there's no question that it's really what the brand needs right now.